Okay, I have a circuit here that has an open ground. When you only have one light, it's an open ground. I would like to fix this one. And it's the same for the one right next to it. So both these plugs either don't have a ground or that's an ungrounded wire. Morning guys, I want to show you a little something. We're going to use a plug tracer today to help find where the wiring is for a particular circuit. It is a commercial electric plug checker wire tracer. In this case, I don't need to trace out where the circuit breaker is. I need to find where the wiring is up in the attic. Okay guys, I'm up here in the attic. Old ass attic. And you can see if I use this tool, I can search if that's part of the circuit that we're on. Any wire that is connected to that sender downstairs is going to beep like that. So that's part of the circuit there. But what I'm really interested in is that wire where I plugged it in. I need to replace that wire or that circuit. Let's see if it's just the wire. So that looks like this one here. And that's beeping, so that is definitely going over to where we need to change it. And it is going over to this junction box here. So everything in here most likely is going to need to be grounded. And it continues here. Let me get the light so you can see. It goes to a junction box there, has no ground. So most likely that goes all the way back to the panel board. I'm gonna have to replace that entire circuit to be able to ground that outlet. So we saw in the attic that there's only one wire up there coming from the wall. But yet there's two outlets side by side and they're both on the same circuit. So curious how they connected these two. I'm guessing they ran a wire right through here, which ought to be really fun to replace. Yeah, we've all ran across these outlets. They've been like painted in place. I mean, the ground gets so much paint in there or whatever, it's useless. You can't even put a ground plug in there. Yeah, that needs replacing. It's not even a tamper resistant outlet. So yeah, let's fix this. Yeah, there's so much paint over the screw. You need to get the paint out of the screw so you can get it off, at least out of the slot. This house is 115, yeah, about 110 years old, so surely this plug has been in here for a long time. It's working, but it's not ideal. This needs to be updated. I'll have to use my knife to cut some of this paint away. I have to cut around this, otherwise all the paint is going to come off with it. I don't care if the paint comes off right around the plug, but I don't want it to go up the wall, tear it off. So you can just kind of score the paint around the plug. Like so. And that should make it easier for it to come off. There you go. A screwdriver behind there or something. Make sure it's off. That way it doesn't take all the paint with it. Let's see what's going on back there. Yep, only two wires, no ground. And that wire looks like it's going down. All right, not always easy. I got these top screws out. They kept turning and turning and turning. Eventually, I just grabbed them with my clines and pulled them out. All right, there's so much paint in these ones. Many times you gotta keep scraping. Scrape along that flat screw get all that paint out of there. Otherwise you have no hope of getting that thing out of there without breaking it. So when you scratch all the paint out of there, you can usually start turning it like so. And if it doesn't come out, just pull it with some Kleins or needle nose. Okay, was able to get the old cut-in box out of the wall. We have a wire going down, but it's stapled in somewhere or something. I gotta check it out. That's going over to this one. Don't really need two outlets that close. If I can't replace this one, I'm just gonna leave it. I don't need two outlets there. Anyway, this one, I believe, because I have a hollow cell here, the wire's not stapled in the wall, I should be able to connect to it up top with a new wire and just have somebody down here pull on it and bring the whole new wire down. Okay, so that was special. They buried the tabs of an old cut-in box under a layer of drywall, which was really a special. So had to chip away at these tabs in front, at the drywall in front of these tabs. So now it should be free enough where I can almost slide this thing out, but there's going to be some other little bits in the way. All right, it's getting there. All right, cool. So yeah, like I said, that was special when people do that, when they drywall right over. This might have been a box that's been there for a really, really, really long time. So yeah, once you chip out around the drywall, get these screws taken out, I was able to pull it out. And I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to replace this wire. It's going down underneath the house just for a couple feet and then going over to here. Okay, so originally I want to replace this wire. This wire is somehow going from here to over here. You can record. Just follow me. It's going from here to over here. And how they did it, I just learned. They ran the wire down, went through the wall. It is behind here and going up into here. That's a big no-no. That's like playing Russian roulette. They have nails in here somewhere. I don't want wiring, live wiring behind here squashed up against the wall. So here's another trick. I'm gonna have to, if I want to keep both outlets, I need to get a wire from here to here without going outside, without going down in the basement or up in the attic. I could do that. But for me, it might be easier if I have the right tool to see where the studs are in the wall if there's just one. So if I take a tape measure and slide a tape measure down here, it's stopping at about 10 inches. So roughly, it's telling me right about here roughly. It's at an angle, so it's not going to be the same. It's telling me right about there's a piece of wood. You can do the same on this side. Take your tape measure, feed it down the wall. Nice sturdy tape measure until it stops. Okay, it hits something right there, stop. So we're looking at 16 inches down the wall. So 16 inches, that's about right. If you look at this, this is about the width of a typical truss. So it looks like I have one stud in the wall, but it's quite a ways down the wall. So I may or may not be able to drill that. There's a couple different approaches. I could cut out a square here and drill it, or on one side and drill it. Or if I had a long enough bit and I can get a straight angle, if it was closer here, I could drill it right from here, or just go up in the attic and do it. But the attic has a slope, a low slope. Is going to be very hard to get a hole up there. So if I want to keep both of these outlets, I would probably have to cut a square of drywall out on one side, drill a hole through this piece of wood, so I can run a wire from one side to the other to be able to keep both of these outlets. I am definitely abandoning this wire. I don't want live wire pinched between the drywall and this baseboard. Sometimes people did that and it's not a cool way to do it. Okay guys, I found that wire that's going down to the outlet downstairs that I want to rewire. I cut it out of the junction box. There's only 2 wires coming out, and you see now I have a ground going on. In old construction like this, they didn't staple stuff in the walls, they just threw it down in the wall. So I should be able to have somebody downstairs pulling on this wire right here, this old existing wire, and while I feed it from up here, after I tape this connection, I'll be able to just feed the new wire down fairly straightforward. What I don't want is this, the wire's bent back and hooking over, to be too big. I want to make this connection and then squeeze it with my needle nose or my clines and then tape it really tight, just in case the hole they put down there is the same size as the wire. I don't want to have too much trouble with it getting stuck going through the hole going down the wall. Okay, I'm going to tape this up and we'll come back. Okay, so we get the wire pulled through, and we had some difficulty because I had to actually change this. See how small that is now? That big clump I had that I thought was going to work didn't work. And I just tied 1 wire from here and 1 wire from there, bent them over, and yeah, that made for an easier pull. So now we have a new grounded wire pulled into there, but I still have to go up into the attic and staple this one where it makes sense so people don't trip on it. And if they do, it doesn't pull it out of the wall. Okay guys, there's my new wire going down the wall, across the attic, stapled over there. And it runs all the way across over to that mess over there, which is some camera wiring and so on and so on, over to a new junction box. I didn't put it in the junction box yet because I haven't finished downstairs, so gotta be safe and finish downstairs first. Over there. So we get the wire pulled down through the wall, and we have an opening here. But I've decided, instead of having just 1 outlet there and 1 outlet here, which doesn't make any sense, it's too close, I'm just gonna block this outlet, and I'm gonna make this one into a quadraplex. Well, what's a quadraplex? Quadraplex is when you have 2 sets of outlets. So both facing the same way, preferably. But yeah, we'll make it into a quadraplex because we do plug the Christmas tree on this side. So it'd be nice to have a couple extra plugs there instead of having a 6 strip and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and set this up for a quadraplex. So what you wanna do is you wanna check inside the hole, make sure there's not a truss on the side. You wanna expand this hole, not a truss, make sure there's not a 2x4. And this one looks like there's plenty of room. I measured earlier, had like 17 inches in there. So I kinda wanna go more to the left. I'll open it up more to the left. And I'm gonna put this side up against just about up against there. And I'm gonna level it with a level. I'm gonna mark these lines and we're gonna cut it out. So as you can see, my 2-gang cut-in box is going to be quite a bit bigger than the hole here. So I am just gonna use my drywall saw, even though this is kind of some sort of fiber board, and go ahead and cut it out. If you have a Dremel that has a drywall attachment or wood attachment, that would work really good right here. Just to cut along here, make it nice and square, cut along here, and then cut along here. And you may have to open this up as well. So we're gonna go ahead and open this up for a quadraplex or a 2-gang box. So got the box to fit, and hell no, couldn't have done that with this. I had to use the Sawzall. There was no way I was gonna be able to cut through how thick that is. That's just crazy. That's the old wire there. It's just a jumper from here to there. That's gonna get abandoned. Yeah, so that's a good cut. I got that in there. It slides right in. You put the level on it, and we can make that perfectly level. Oh yeah, that's what we're looking for. It's perfectly level. And because it's so thick, the wall, I will probably have to put a drywall screw in this way into this wood and one into this way into that wood. These little tabs typically don't go back far enough. If I back that off anymore, this little tab is just gonna fall off into the wall. So it's plastic. You can totally screw right through the side of this thing into that thick ass wall right there. All right, we got the box in the wall. I put some insulating foam around the edges. When this insulating foam hardens, we can just peel it off, the stuff that we don't need. I did end up doing the screws in the side because it would keep pulling out without them. You may also have that problem in your house now with some outlets that are loose in the wall because the wall's either too thick or the little tabs broke off. So I used this item here, DAP. Make sure if you go to Home Depot and get one, you find one that actually has the straw on the end, because this is really a pain in the neck without the straw. I'll put a link in the description to it. Anyway, we get the wire pulled through here. We're gonna go ahead and cut it and prepare it for putting the outlets in. So let me show you something about these outlets that I'm gonna put in. This is a tamper resistant Decora style outlet. Okay, and we plan on putting it into this cut-in box. You see this little niche right here? This will go in there, except you see how much bigger it is with those little tabs on the top? These can be broken off, and they're designed to be broken off for putting it into these boxes, which is gonna make the outlet plate sit flush. If you don't break these off, the outlet plate is gonna stick up off the wall, and you're gonna be wondering why. Well, this is more designed for being put onto the drywall, hold it from falling in the drywall. So we're gonna take those tabs off. All right, so these are so easy to break these off. They're designed, you see this little crack right there, a little line. You wanna take these off, just wiggle them, take a pair of needle nose, and they come right off. They're designed to come off. 1, 2, and the ones on the bottom, and 4. And then if you follow me, you'll see how this, look at that, this will fit perfectly in that little niche right there. When we put them in, it'll actually sit flush, and your plate will sit flush on the wall instead of sticking up off the wall. Okay, so you see we got the outlets prepared. We broke the tabs off. I have a couple tools here. I have what we call dikes or diagonals, regular flat screwdriver, some needle nose, and a pair of wire strippers. So, but what we need to do is prepare this wire here, the 12 wire that we pulled for a 20 amp circuit. And there's a couple ways you can do this. You can do it with a utility knife, or you can use your dikes, but you got to be very careful. You get used to the squeeze. You can pinch lightly the installation on one side, and then do the same thing on the other side. Just pinch it lightly because you don't want to nick the wires, and then you can pull the insulation off. You can see there's no damage to the wires because I didn't do it too hard. You can pull the insulation off, put that aside, take the paper off the ground wire. Okay, and you want to make sure you leave some insulation inside the box. You don't want to push the wiring out of the box whereas there's no insulation showing inside the box. Fold this in the back, and we want to leave a long ground wire at this moment because we want to connect these two outlets together. So what I'm going to do is just pinch my ground wire around here for the first one. Take my needle nose, and we're going to pinch that nice and tight like that. Now they do have special screwdrivers for this type of screw for the outlets. I don't have one. I suppose I could put a link in the comments to get the right screwdriver, but you can totally do this with a flat screwdriver. Tighten this one, and also you should probably torque it. I think it's about 8 pounds. So, but I put them pretty tight. So start with the grounds. It's upside down at the moment. Put a little bit of a loop on this because you want to get to the next outlet. We're gonna put 2 outlets on here. Cut this one. And I'm gonna put a little hook on here because I want to put the other outlet on here. Take the needle nose, put a little hook. See that? That's gonna go on the green one. That's my ground. The white one's my neutral. You want to slide that around your neutral. Around your ground. Pinch it so it's nice and tight. And you want to make sure you put these clockwise. Don't put the wire going the other way because it'll tend to loosen when you tighten the screw, because the screw goes clockwise. So this way, if you follow the wire clockwise, it'll tend to tighten, not loosen. All right, nice and tight. All right, now you can see how this is going to work here. It's going to look like this. We're going to be side by side. We're grounded. Now we need to connect our neutral and ground. There are holes in the back of these for quick stab ins. I hate using those. They are only designed for 14 wire and it's not a good connection at all. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna cut these wires enough. You need to have about 6 inches coming out of the box from the back to the front here, about 6 inches. I'm gonna cut it, strip it. There's a strip gauge on the outlet. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere here. It shows it somewhere. Maybe this one doesn't have it, but anyway, usually about 1/2 inch. So we want to strip it. There's some notches on here. There's a number 12 down here. That's the wrong one. Next one up. A little bit longer than that. And same thing we do with the ground. We want to pre-twist it. That's your neutral. This one's your hot. We are not connected in the attic just yet. This is a new wiring for this particular circuit. Okay, so what do we do now? I don't know if you can see this. The color here is silver and the color of these screws are gold. The neutral is on the left, the silver. Your black wire is on the right, the smaller one. So we want the neutral over here. Same thing you did with the ground. You want to slide that in there. Pinch it. Now that makes, when we tighten that, if you can see that, can you zoom on that and see how it is? When we tighten this down, there is going to be so much contact between this exposed copper and the outlet itself. It's a way better connection than using these stab ins, which you can't anyway with a 12 wire. This is the preferred method. Nice and tight. Now look at that connection. There's a lot of copper touching the back side of that screw and the metal on the inside of this outlet here. Way better connection than using stab ins. I don't like stab ins. Okay, move that one out of the way. Same thing here. This is your hut coming in. Same thing. Remember the direction of the screw. Tighten it. I don't suggest using an impact tool. It's not designed for that. And it doesn't really tighten it that tight. You can use your hand. Just make sure it's nice and tight. Don't overdo it, you big guys. That's an excellent connection there. Then we want to power this outlet too. So you can make a set of jumpers from one outlet to the next one using this. I would say you probably only need 6 inches or so. So you can make a set of jumpers to go from one outlet to the next one. Same thing. Make these. It's easy after you've done a few hundred of these, or even thousands. So we can start with the neutral coming from this one. Same side. Same way. Same connection. Nice, good connection. Sorry, I'm in the way of the camera. Okay, there's jumper one. Now the hot will be on the other side. Same way, make sure it's going to go clockwise. I prefer the needle nose, but whatever gets this crimped on nice and tight. The nice thing about pinching this close is even if you forget, God forbid, you forget to tighten this screw, even if you push the outlet in the wall, that's probably not going to come off. But you do want your connections tight. There's a saying, loose wires cause fires, and it's very true. It creates a lot more heat if the connection is bad from arcing, etc. So make sure you tighten all your screws and you won't have a problem. And I'm not much of a lefty, but I'm going to give it a go. Okay, nice and tight. All right, so now we have our jumpers, which we want to run over to our second outlet. Like so. Okay, and the same thing. Same hook. Neutral. And again, this is not on, it's disconnected up in the attic. This is a new wire replacing a non-grounded outlet. Make your hook. And the same thing, the left-hand side is your neutral, silver screws, white wire. Doesn't matter if you put this on the top and or the bottom screw, as long as you get it on there. And pinch it. And try doing it lefty, which is always fun. And the one that you don't use, it's good practice to go ahead and tighten this down as well. And our last hot. It doesn't have to match top or bottom. As long as it's on one of these, it doesn't much matter. Eeks, eeks, eeks. Okay, and if you strip your wire a little bit long, you don't want it to really go past, you don't really want it to go past the back of the outlet, but as long as it's this close, it's fine. Tighten it down. Probably going to cut this part. Okay, so you have a ground jumper, one piece. Because we don't have a screw here, we can just stab them in. You can just jump it from one to another, make sure they're tight. Neutral, neutral, hot, hot. You can put these wires, push them, especially the grounds. You want to make sure you push all these grounds all the way to the back of the box so they don't come up here and hit the neutral or hit the hot. And because I put these screws in here to hold the box, I'm probably going to put electrical tape on here. I normally wouldn't on a plastic box, but because I have metal screws, I don't want any problem with this screw being energized if it touches. So I'm gonna get some electrical tape and tape these out, tape these up. All right, so we got some electrical tape on there now. Like I said, I normally wouldn't do that, but because I used the metal screws, I don't want any chance of energizing this screw. It wouldn't short out because it's either gonna touch the hot side or the neutral side, not both. But I just don't like the idea of it even possibly touching. So we got electrical tape on there now. We're gonna go ahead and screw these in and we'll show you. All right, we cleaned up a little bit. We got the outlets in. Sometimes they wanna fight you. Sometimes they wanna be left a little bit, right a little bit. So a little trick is to try to push it in manually, and then if it feels like it's going left or feels like it's going right, you want to pull it out and then nudge it the way you want it to go first. Get it kind of pre-bent because of the wiring in the back. You want to get it pre-bent the way you want it to go and then push it back in. But make sure your ground wires are way in the back. You don't want those coming forward and touching anything. And let me show you another trick with the plate to try to get these flush and straight. All right, so far so good. Here's a good tip. You can take your plate that you plan on using. Oh, this one's a little dirty. You take your plate you plan on using and turn it around. And it's kind of like a template. You can put it over and you'll be able to see how much or how flat your outlets are. Maybe one sticks up way more than the other, but you can keep making your adjustments. Take this off, make your adjustments, put this back on, and then when you're happy with what you see, turn it around and put it on. Here is the new circuit wiring for the outlet that we ran, and the junction box is here. So I'm gonna add this to this junction box to some updated wiring that I have done previously. I'm gonna add it to this junction box. As you can see, this is the new wire coming in for that outlet, and this is the junction box with the wiring that we added. So we have probably power coming in right here, power coming in and branching off and feeding another part of the room, and now another outlet. So if you're doing remodeling or rewiring, I should say, this is a great way to do it. Install junction boxes. You can pull wires down the wall and up of the wall if you want to, but junction boxes are easily accessible in the attic. If you need to fix anything later, you can re-pull it. And make sure you use proper Romex connectors, so like you've seen before, the wiring doesn't get all scuffed up and chafed and short out in the box. And we do have a ground, but I don't have a ground screw, so this is a method I've seen before, which will work once we get the cover put on. Good to go. Some red wire nuts. Put this old cover back on. And let's go downstairs and check it out. Well, there you have it. We have 2 orange lights, which means it is correct. You see it there? And that should be true for all. Now we finally have a grounded outlet. I know that's a lot of work for somebody to do that, but that's what's necessary if you want to change an outlet from ungrounded to ground, especially when there's wiring in there that was not a grounded type of wire.